Now we will start walking towards charts. Okay. So first, what we will learn today is, so we have already worked on the bar chart. So bar I'm not taking as a separate chart because bar chart is something that we have been seeing from the start, and I guess everyone knows a bar chart. So let's not put our time in there. Rather than that, let's start from the let's start with the charts which are useful and which are critical. See, bar graph histogram you have done from childhood and you have done in Excel as well. So let's not waste time there. Let's look at some of the charts which are critical. Let's do waterfall. Let's do scatter plots. Let's do box plots. Box plots we have done already. Let's do all these and let's see. Line graph. Line graph is also very important. It may seem like one line chumma going over here and there, but then line graph has a varied amount of edits that you can do, and line graph is pretty interesting stuff, and one of the very important graphs in your day-to-day life. So let's start with scatter plots and see what scatter plot is. Scatter plots, you know uh, will show you the distribution again. In Python, whenever we want to, in data science, specifically in data science, when we want to see the distribution of values, because whenever you do a data modeling, what happens is you tend to take a hypothesis, and you tend to work on that hypothesis pretty much. So while you're taking an hypothesis and while you want to see the distribution of various values, what you want to do is you want to plot a scatter plot. Why? Because I want to make sure that how much of my hypothesis is solid accordance to the data, and how much of my values are scrambled across. So if it is scrambled across, then I don't want to, much, like no, like I don't want to consider those values because those are going out of the hypothesis, or we concentrate more on them who are away, or who are having, who are not meeting my conditions, or that can depend on many things: the linearity, the dependence, the biasness of data. So linearity and biasness plays a very important role while we are modeling the data. So scatter plot comes very as a very important graph. So see, it was blank. As soon as I take two values, see what happens is bar graph, table, and scatter plot, and this horizontal goals chart. These basically get activated. So scatter plot, if you see what is there, look at this portion below. What it tells: two or more measures and one or more dimensions. So scatter plot will need two or more measures as a compulsory thing. Why two or more measures? Why not a dimension or measure? Because it's a two-way graph, right? It tallies this, and it shows you where your data stands. So now that we have, so it is basically the profit and sales and profit, and in accordance to that, where do you stand at this point of time? Like that is the combo pack of both profit and sales, and that shows you that your thing is over here, which you can look at and infer whatever you want to. Okay, so once we select profit and sales, we see that only one guy is over here. Why it is here? Because it is showing me the totals of profits and sales. So let's now I want to say, suppose I want to see let me explore the various ways I can see my data, starting with, say, categories. So what I'll do, I'll uh, bring in category, and I'll get category, and I'll put it into the chart area. As soon as I do that, see over here, three types of categories are there, which gets into this pane. Now, if I want to increase the size, I can do that. So I have increased my size, and there is shape as well, right? So there are like this, there are multiple shapes. So you will select their shape and okay. So you see these gets converted into various shapes. Yeah, and apart from that, what happens is, if you pull category to labels now, so this was pretty empty, right? So I don't know what to work on. So if I put category to labels, what happens is these labels come up. And also, if you want to, I don't know if this palette will, this works. So if you put, your category to colors, then what happens is your points wherever you are, these gets colored as well. Okay. So that is category. Now, say suppose if I, so that is not much of a data. So let's look at something else which gives me a lot of data. Let me pull in, say, customers, and let me pull in over here. So see what happens over here is, so what happens over here is that I have pulled in customers, and now I see that all these customers are plotted by the profits. So if I have a label, what happens? I can see, what is basically each customer's thing, each customer's profit. So if I'm here, then it gives me the name as Tom, and we can see the profit and sales. If I'm here, it gives me Maria. So that's how I see that the customers are over here. But what happens is this is pretty messy, right? So let me now select something else. Say I select market. Market looks pretty cool. So for market, the shape that I have chosen is these. So if I just increase the size, so you see like this. So now that's my scatter plot. That's how I change the icons and change shapes. Okay, how do you change shapes? You go to shape and you have the various default options. You can assign a palette and you can hit an OK. Okay. So now that was scatter chart for you guys, and now the next part of scatter plot is, let's make it an interactive chart. How will you make it interactive chart? So let me not modify it. So let's have till here we have market. So now let's make it interactive. So how will you do that? So now say you want to see the scattered plot based on the category. So in category, let me do a show filter and remove it. So now you see, if you select category over here, what happens is in the category furniture, it shows me that for market APAC, what was the profit and what was the sales. For this one, so for furniture, now you see APAC, this was the sale, this was this. Now if you select technology, like this, select office supplies, for this, like this, like we can see that the top profit is with EU as a market for the category office supplies, and we know the profit and the sales. Okay, cool, perfect. So Now we will see what are drop lines. Okay. So what are drop lines in there? Drop lines are nothing but lines which basically guide a person who is looking into a scatter plot chart. That so over here we have very less icons, but then if it is a crowdy place and he wants to know that this data, which is basically Africa, no, US, what is the exact value over here, if he or she wants to know. So then for that to come, because it is not always, so if the it's not there, so it is not always the correct thing, correct positioning where I can understand, right? So for that comes drop lines to guide me that you know what, let me draw you a line so that you understand that what are the components and how are they performing. Okay, so for that you have to drop a line. Okay, so over here you see there is drop lines. So how drop lines come? Drop lines can be there in the chart. Once you have selected a node, anything from here, if you select and if you do a right click, what happens is I see a drop line, uh, drop down, and what I'll do is I'll do a show drop lines. Okay. Now see the drop lines are shown. So what I know from here now is that it is 120 wala thing, and over here I have this. So that is drop lines, which exactly guides you where your data stands by means of drawing a line. Now you may say that, you know, this is cool, but then I want to see the values as well. Say for example, somehow this hover values are not coming. So I want to see the values in the drop lines. So for that, what do? You go over here to drop lines and you do an edit, and in the labels you see none is there, do an automatic and okay. So now you see what happens is the values come on the drop line itself, and which helps you a lot in looking at the data in an overview. Correct, and the exact data, whatever the number is, whatever it is, wherever you see this thing, you just give me this plot and your data will be ready. Okay, so now let me do something. Now that I've put the labels. Now say suppose you don't want it over your x-axis and you want only the drop lines to be in your y-axis. What will you do? Again over here, go to drop lines, edit drop lines, and over here you see x and y-axis. So let me choose a x-axis. So now you see what happens is you only have your values for the y-axis. So again, if you want it for the other ones, so if you want it for y-axis only, so you can see that you can have the data for y-axis. Okay. So let me select both of these. Now you may say that drop line I want always because the client has said that this looks pretty fancy. So if you want to keep drop lines like this, you can do an always and you can do an okay. So what happens is for all the nodes in your data, you get to see the drop lines along with the labels, and you can plot your scatter chart. Okay, so that's about scatter charts and how can you make it, and and various options that you can use in scatter chart, and uh, you can go ahead and practice for yourself. Clear, guys? I hope it is. Next, what we will learn is called a word map or a word cloud. what is a word map or a word cloud. Anyone who has worked on a word map or word cloud? No, okay. So let's look at what is a word map or a word cloud. Okay. So, so if you want to represent your data, if you anyways want to represent your data, say you're representing your data as sales done by countries. So once you want to do that, you instead of showing a bar or a scattered graph, we can show which country has highest sales based on a word map, where you have different colors based on countries or sales, and it is pretty colorful, and it is a very choiceable metric that people use. And I have seen, like, mostly all the Tableau dashboards have a word cloud created on certain specifications, and it looks pretty cool as well. Hmm. So let's do that, and let's see how we can uh, you know create a word map. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to make the word map on my country, right? Or whatever is your choice. Let me make a country and show you how to create a word chart, word cloud. So the first thing is we have to drag in country or whatever dimensions you want to make it on to text. Now, if I do this, what happens? I get them, but then they are not as attractive. It comes in a boring font, and it comes like this. So, and what do I want to see it on? I want to see the word cloud based on my sales. So what I'll do is I'll put my sales on size. So once I do that, I see that a weird chart comes up. Now this has come up, but this I don't want this weird chart, right? So I want the word map to happen. So for that, what we will do, we will go to this marks, and from marks, which where it is automatic, we will go to text. Once you land up in text, what happens? You see the countries get selected, and this happens. Why I did this text from marks? Because there is a visualization query language that runs automatically and selects the best suiting chart for you. Okay, so the visual query goes in and sees, like, what is this, and it goes and selects the best suiting font. So now you see the country names appear like this, whereby you have all the country names, and they are, like, they're there. Now, say now, what do we want to do next? We want to make it colorful. So for that, again, we need to take sales, and I'll put my sales, because everything is based on sales. I want to show it, right? So what I'll do is I'll put sales into the colors, and see a color palette comes up. Let me shorten it. Yeah. So see what happens is we see a color palette coming up. Now, if you want to edit it, you can go to colors, and from there you can choose edit colors, and you see a huge amount of palettes you get, which looks like this. So if you want it to be any other palette, like, so if you want to choose, you can do this. You can edit colors, and you can do. I specifically like this pretty much, so it looks cool as well. So now what we do is we put sum of sales into color, and you see the gradient coloring happens. But over here I've done it, but so that's why I've done it twice or thrice. That's why it's coming like this. But apart from that, what happens is you get it first as a gradient coloring of blue or something. So you need to select a palette for yourself and do it. Okay, so now my word cloud is done, and I see that the size of it defines how much of the sales is happening by country, and you can do it. Now, if you want to make it more bold, the text maybe, what you can do is from marks, you can go to text, you can select this, you can select the country, you can hit a bold, and okay. And now all your countries are now in bold, and the countries are shown as part of a word cloud. So in case you want to make it interactive based on your requirement, so maybe you can say by order priority. So if you do an click on order priority, and if you show filter, so if you do a show filter, and if you say suppose critical, for critical, if you choose order priority critical, it shows you like what all country based on sales, what all countries come up. If you do a high, so see it's changing, right? For critical, see here it was France, and here it was Australia. So if you do a high, you will get Australia and France over here. If you do low, you have United Kingdom, Germany, etc. And then if you're medium, sales for that as well. So for everything, you get it, and that's a word cloud chart that you can use as part of your dashboard, and it looks pretty cool.